Keanu Reeves was walking alone down a quiet street, just as the sun was setting. Behind the tall buildings, he had finished a long day of filming, and all he wanted was a moment of peace. The city was busy, but this little corner felt calm. As he turned onto a narrow alley, he heard a sound that stopped him in his tracks. It was soft at first, like a whisper in the wind, but as he walked closer, the notes grew clearer. It was the sound of a violin, delicate and haunting, filling the empty street with a kind of sadness that made his chest tighten. He followed the music and saw a small figure sitting on an old crate near a closed shop. It was a little girl, no older than 9 or 10, her hair tied back with a faded pink ribbon. She held the violin close to her chin, eyes shut tight, fingers moving carefully on the strings. Next to her was a piece of cardboard with a handwritten sign that said, "Violin song for $1." Beside the sign lay a small tin can with just a few coins in it. Her tiny hands trembled a little as she played, but the sound that came out was pure and beautiful. Keanu stood there, frozen. He could not remember the last time he had heard music so honest. It was not perfect, but it had something real, something that touched a place deep inside him. He watched her bow slide over the strings as if she was pouring out her heart with every note. For a moment, he forgot who he was. He was not the famous actor anymore. He was just a man, standing in the fading light, feeling the raw ache of a child's music. He looked around and saw people passing by. Some glanced at the girl, but did not stop. Some dropped a coin without looking, but no one really listened. Keanu's hands went into his pockets, and he felt the folded bills he had left over from lunch. Slowly, he walked closer. The girl opened her eyes when she sensed someone near. Her eyes were wide and brown, and for a second, they showed a hint of fear. Then she lowered her head again, as if ready to be ignored like so many times before. But Keanu did not drop a coin and walk away. Instead, he bent down and asked softly, "May I hear your best song?" His voice was gentle, almost a whisper. The girl looked up, surprised. She nodded, then pointed to the sign. He pulled out a bill, more than $1, and placed it carefully in the tin can. Her eyes widened at the sight of it. For her, it was not just money. It was someone saying, "I see you." She lifted her violin again. The bow touched the strings, and this time the song she played was different. It was slow at first, like a small stream trickling through rocks. Then it grew stronger, rising and falling like waves. Keanu could feel the story in the music. It was a story of hope mixed with pain, of dreams held tight even when the world tries to take them away. He did not know where she had learned to play like this. Maybe from her mother, maybe from an old teacher who cared. But every note she played felt like a prayer whispered into the night. As she played, Keanu saw something he had not expected. A single tear rolled down the girl's cheek and fell onto the worn wood of her violin. Her fingers did not stop moving. Her bow did not shake. She kept going, even as more tears fell. Keanu felt his own throat tighten. He had seen many things in his life, fame, lights, crowds. But this moment was different. This was real. This was raw. This was the kind of moment that reminded him why kindness still mattered. When the last note faded into the dusk, there was silence between them. The street was still. The girl lowered her violin and wiped her eyes with the back of her sleeve. She looked up at Keanu, and for the first time, she gave him a small smile. It was shy, a little broken, but it was there. He knelt down so they were at eye level and asked gently, "What is your name?" She whispered, "Emma." He nodded. "Emma, you play beautifully. Why do you play here alone?" She shrugged, looking down at the tin can. "My mom is sick. She can't work. I play so we can eat." The words hit Keanu like a blow to the chest. He glanced at the tiny pile of coins in the can and felt something deep inside him shift. He thought of his own mother, of the times when he had struggled too, when he had nothing but hope and a kind stranger. He reached into his pocket again, pulled out more bills, and placed them into the can. Emma's eyes widened again, but before she could speak, Keanu said softly, "Keep playing, Emma. Never stop. Your music is special." She nodded, tears filling her eyes again. She clutched the violin close to her chest like a lifeline. Keanu stood up, but he did not feel like leaving. Something told him this moment was only the beginning. He looked at Emma and felt a promise forming in his mind. He would come back. He would not let her stand here alone in the cold again. But he also knew he could not just give her money and walk away. He wanted to help her in a way that would last. As he turned to leave, he looked back one more time. Emma was wiping her tears. Setting her violin again under her chin, she closed her eyes, and once more, the street filled with her music. This time, Keanu noticed people stopping to listen, drawn in by the haunting sound that carried something bigger than just a song. It carried hope. Walking away, Keanu felt a strange mix of sadness and purpose. He did not have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing: sometimes, the smallest violin in the loneliest street can reach the biggest hearts, and sometimes all it takes is one person to listen. This was only the start. Keanu could not sleep that night. He lay in his hotel room, staring at the ceiling while the city lights glowed through the curtains. He kept hearing Emma's music in his mind, those trembling notes, her tiny shoulders shaking as she held back her tears, the way her eyes had lit up when he stayed to listen. He thought about how many people must have walked past her every day, never stopping, never wondering why a little girl sat alone in the cold playing for $1. When the sun rose, he knew he had to find her again. He made himself a promise. He would help her, but not in a way that would make her feel small. He would help her see her own worth. He would make sure she never had to feel alone with her violin on that street corner again. After filming wrapped that afternoon, Keanu grabbed a cup of hot chocolate from a small cafe and made his way back to the alley. He half worried she wouldn't be there, that maybe she was only a ghost of a sad city night. But as he turned the corner, he saw her. Emma was sitting in the same spot, bundled in a thin coat that looked too big for her tiny frame. Her violin case was open this time, and there were a few more coins than before. She was playing a simple tune, but her eyes looked tired, dark circles under them like bruises. Keanu walked up and placed the hot chocolate beside her. She paused, surprised, then gave him that shy, broken smile again. "Hi," she said, her voice barely louder than the notes she played. "Hi, Emma," he replied gently. "I brought you something warm." She reached for the cup with her small hands, fingers red from the cold. She took a sip and closed her eyes like it was the best thing she had tasted in days. Keanu sat down on the cold step next to her, ignoring the looks of people passing by. He did not care who saw him. He only cared that Emma did not feel invisible anymore. "How is your mom?" Keanu asked after a moment. Emma looked down. "She's still sick. She sleeps most of the time. Sometimes I think she doesn't hear me play anymore." Keanu felt a deep ache in his chest. He wanted to fix it all for her, wave a hand and make the sickness go away, but he knew it was not that easy. So instead, he asked, "Does anyone help you at home?" She shook her head. "It's just us." Keanu looked at her violin. The wood was scratched and faded. The bowstring was frayed at the edges. Yet somehow, in her hands, it made magic. He thought of all the people he knew, music producers, artists, teachers, and an idea sparked in his mind. Maybe there was a way to help her that would last longer than just a few dollars in a tin can. "Emma, do you like playing the violin?" he asked. She nodded, her eyes brightening a little. "My mom taught me. She used to play at weddings. She says music makes sad things softer." Keanu smiled at her words. "Your mom is right. Your music is special. Would you let me help you get better at it? Maybe find you someone to teach you more." Emma's eyes widened. Then she looked down, shaking her head. "I can't pay. I have to stay here. If I don't play, we don't eat." Keanu felt a lump in his throat. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small notepad. He wrote down a number and handed it to her. "If you ever need me, call this. I want to help you, Emma, not just with money, with everything." Emma looked at the paper as if it was made of gold. She folded it carefully and tucked it into her coat pocket. She whispered, "Thank you," then looked back at her violin. She lifted it again, placed her chin on the rest, and closed her eyes, this time when she played. Keanu saw something shift in the crowd. People slowed down. They stopped. They listened. Her song floated above the cold street like a warm blanket. As the music wrapped around him, Keanu knew this was no ordinary moment. He saw a man in a suit drop a $10 bill in her can. A woman with her child paused to listen, her eyes glistening. A young couple held hands and closed their eyes, letting the song pull them closer. It was like Emma's music was stitching little pieces of broken hearts back together, one note at a time. After a while, Keanu stood up. He placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "I'll come back tomorrow. Promise me you'll be here." She nodded, her bow never missing a beat. Her eyes were closed, but a small, real smile played at the corners of her lips. Keanu turned and walked away. But this time he felt lighter. He knew he had started something he could not walk away from. He would not let the world ignore her music anymore. He would not let her dreams be swallowed by empty streets and careless feet. As he walked into the night, the sound of Emma's violin stayed with him, a promise echoing through the city that some songs are too precious to be lost in the noise. This was only the second step. Keanu woke up the next morning feeling something he had not felt in a long time. It was like hope, mixed with a purpose that made him feel alive. He knew his life was comfortable, filled with bright lights and people who cheered for him. But meeting Emma reminded him of a part of himself that loved simple moments, the kind that could change a life with just a small act of kindness. Before heading back to the film set, he made some calls. He called a friend, Lena, who ran a small music school on the other side of the city. She had once taught music to kids from tough neighborhoods, children who had no money but big dreams. Keanu trusted her. When she heard about Emma, Lena said without a second of doubt, "Bring her to me. We'll make room for her." After work that day, Keanu returned to the alley. The street was busier now. Cars honked, people rushed by. But when he turned the corner, he found Emma exactly where she had been. Her tiny figure hunched over her violin, eyes shut as she played. Her little tin can was half full, but her coat looked thinner than before in the evening cold. Keanu waited for her to finish her song. He did not want her to break the spell she cast with her music. When she lowered her violin, she saw him and smiled. It was still small, but it was real. That shy spark gave him strength. "Emma, I have something to ask you," he said as he crouched down beside her. "Would you like to come with me today, just for an hour? There's a lady I want you to meet. She teaches music to kids like you. She can help you become even better." Emma looked at her tin can, then back at him. "But if I leave, I won't make money for dinner." Keanu felt a pain in his heart. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small envelope he had prepared, and handed it to her. "This is for today, for you and your mom. You don't have to worry." Emma held the envelope with trembling hands. She looked at him with eyes that said she was afraid to believe, afraid this kindness would vanish like a dream. But then she nodded, okay. Keanu helped her pack her violin into its battered case. They walked together down the street. People stared when they recognized him, but he ignored the curious looks. He cared only about the small hand gripping his sleeve, trusting him even though the world had taught her not to trust too easily. When they reached Lena's music school, Emma froze in front of the door. It was a warm little building with posters of children playing instruments on the walls. The soft hum of a piano drifted out into the hallway. She clutched her violin case tight to her chest. Single quotes, "Lena is very kind," Keanu said gently. "You don't have to be scared." Lena came out to greet them. She was a middle-aged woman with gentle eyes and hair tied up in a bun. She knelt down in front of Emma and smiled. "You must be Emma. Keanu told me you're a very special musician." Emma looked down, shy. "I just play a little." "Well," Lena said, standing up, "why don't you play a little for me?" Emma looked at Keanu, who nodded encouragingly. She opened her violin case, took out her instrument, and stood in the small practice room. Her hands shook at first. She was surrounded by photos of other children, happy kids holding shiny instruments, and for a second, she looked like she wanted to run back to the cold street corner. But then she closed her eyes, placed the violin under her chin, and began to play. The first note was soft, almost broken, but it grew stronger with each breath. Her music filled the room, wrapping around the cracked walls like sunlight pushing through clouds. Lena stood still, her eyes wide. She glanced at Keanu, and he saw the silent promise there. She would not let this child go unheard. When Emma finished, the room was quiet. Lena walked over, knelt down again, and placed her hands gently on Emma's shoulders. "Emma, you are amazing. I want you to come here every day. I want to teach you everything I know. Would you like that?" Emma's lips parted, but no words came. Tears welled up in her eyes. She nodded so fast her little ribbon slipped from her hair. Lena hugged her gently, careful not to crush her fragile hope. Keanu watched, his own heart tight. This was what he wanted, not pity, but a chance for Emma to believe in herself. When they left the music school that evening, Emma clutched a small folder Lena had given her. It held sheet music and a tiny pencil. She looked at Keanu as they stood on the sidewalk, the streetlights blinking to life. "Will you come tomorrow too?" she asked, her voice so small it felt like it could break. Keanu knelt down to meet her eyes. "Yes, Emma, I'll come tomorrow, I promise, and the day after that." "You're not alone anymore," she nodded, holding her violin case like a treasure chest. For the first time since he had met her, he saw her shoulders lift a little, as if the world was not quite so heavy. As he watched her walk back home, the street no longer felt so cold. He knew there would be more challenges, more shadows waiting around the corner. But he also knew one thing: sometimes the greatest songs begin in the quietest places, and the smallest hands can hold the biggest dreams. This was only the third step. The days that followed felt like a quiet miracle unfolding for Emma, and for Keanu too. Every evening after filming, he made his way back to that little street corner. But each day, the change was clear. Emma no longer sat alone on that cold crate, hoping for spare coins. Instead, she would be waiting for him near the cafe at the end of the block, violin case clutched close, eyes bright with hope and a small shy smile that was growing stronger with each day. Keanu would walk with her to Lena's music school. It became their routine. Sometimes he brought her a sandwich or a warm drink. Sometimes they talked about silly things, like her favorite candy or how she liked to listen to birds singing early in the morning. Emma, who had once answered every question with a nervous whisper, now giggled when Keanu teased her about her favorite pink ribbon that always slipped out of her hair. Inside the music school, Lena worked with Emma every day. They started with simple exercises, teaching her how to read notes properly, how to hold her bow with more strength. Emma soaked it all in like a dry sponge drinking rain. Each day, her music grew clearer, braver. She began playing songs that Lena said children twice her age struggled with. Her small fingers danced on the strings, and when she made a mistake, she would laugh instead of crying. But Keanu knew that life was not as simple as a song. One night, after he walked Emma home to her small apartment, he saw where she really lived. The building was old, its walls cracked, the hallway dimly lit with flickering bulbs. He waited at the door while Emma fumbled with the keys. Inside, he heard coughing, deep, rough, coming from the bedroom. Emma's mother lay on a thin mattress on the floor, blankets piled around her. Her face was pale and lined with worry. She tried to sit up when she saw Keanu at the door. "Thank you for bringing her back," her mother said, her voice hoarse but kind. She tried to smile, but it faded quickly into another cough. Keanu stepped inside, careful not to intrude, but his eyes took in every corner: the tiny kitchen with empty shelves, the medicine bottles lined up by the bed, the smell of stale air, and cold. Emma knelt beside her mother, showing her the new sheet music Lena had given her. Her mother stroked her hair, her eyes full of love and pride, even though her hands trembled. Keanu sat down on the old chair near the door. "Mrs. Flores, please, let me help. You need proper care. Medicine, food. Emma needs you strong." The woman shook her head weakly. "We can't take charity, Mr. Reeves. People come and go. They give a little, then they leave. I don't want Emma to get used to things that won't last." Keanu leaned forward, his voice soft but steady. "I'm not going anywhere, I promise you. Emma is special. Her music deserves to be heard, and you deserve to get better. Please, let me do this, not as charity, but as family. You both deserve that." Mrs. Flores looked at him for a long time. She could see he meant every word. Slowly, Her shoulders sank in relief. She whispered, "Thank you." That night, Keanu stayed longer than he planned. He helped Emma make soup from what little they had in the kitchen. They talked about music and dreams. He promised Mrs. Flores that he would arrange a good doctor, food deliveries, and someone to check on her every day while Emma was at the music school. When he finally stepped back out into the night, the city looked different to him. The flashing billboards and busy streets did not feel empty like before. He felt like he was part of something bigger than himself, something that mattered more than any role he had ever played. The next afternoon, Lena surprised Emma with something special. She gave her a small, second-hand violin case. It was not fancy, but it was sturdy and had a soft lining to protect the precious instrument inside. "You deserve this, Emma," Lena said, hugging her tight. "You're not that street corner girl anymore. You're my student now." Emma beamed. She ran to Keanu, showing him the new case like it was a treasure chest full of gold. He knelt down, grinning wide. "You're going to make so much music, Emma. So much that the whole world will have to stop and listen." But even in that moment of hope, shadows lurked close by. A man in a dark jacket leaned against the wall across the street, pretending to tie his shoe. His eyes followed Emma and Keanu with a frown. He had seen the famous actor visiting this poor street for days now. Rumors were starting to spread about the little girl, the money, the chance to take advantage of something pure. Keanu did not notice the man that day. He was too focused on Emma's shy laughter, on her mother's slow recovery, on how her music filled up the cold corners of the world with light. But sometimes, hope attracts darkness, and the more beautiful something is, the more the world tries to test it. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Keanu promised himself one more thing. He would protect Emma's light, no matter what. Even if the world tried to drag her music back into the shadows, he would be there. Her violin would not be silenced. Not this time. This was only the fourth step. The next few days felt like a dream for Emma. She woke up each morning to the smell of warm soup that the neighbor brought, paid for quietly by Keanu. A nurse came by to help her mother take the right medicine. For the first time in months, Mrs. Flores could stand up and brush Emma's hair before she left for the music school. It was a small thing, but for Emma, it felt like the world was being stitched back together with tiny, gentle threads each day. At Lena's music school, Emma's music grew stronger. She learned to read new notes, play harder pieces. When she made mistakes, Lena would smile and say, "Mistakes mean you're trying." Keanu watched from the back of the room sometimes, a quiet figure who always clapped the loudest when Emma finished. The other children at the school, who had once looked at Emma with curiosity, now gathered around her to listen. She was no longer just the girl from the street corner. She was the one who could make a room go silent with her bow. One evening, Lena pulled Keanu aside after class. "She's special," Lena said in a low voice. "I want to take her to a small concert next month. It's just a local fundraiser, but it would be good for her. Let her see how her music can touch more people." Keanu's eyes lit up. "She'll love that. She needs this." But as they spoke, neither of them noticed the same man in the dark jacket across the street. He leaned against a lamppost, eyes hidden under a cap, watching Keanu and Emma through the music school window. His lips curled into a grin when he saw Keanu pull out an envelope and hand it to Lena. He turned away, pulling out an old phone, whispering something to someone who picked up on the first ring. The next day, Keanu walked Emma home again. They passed the same corners, the same shadows. Emma skipped beside him, swinging her new violin case. They were almost at her building when a stranger stepped out of an alley. He was tall, with unshaven cheeks and a rough voice that tried to sound friendly, but made Emma shrink closer to Keanu. "Hey, you're Keanu Reeves, right?" the man said, his smile crooked. Big fan. Big fan. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Keanu's instincts tensed. He shifted so he was between the man and Emma. "Sure, but maybe another time. I'm walking her home." The man shrugged, stepping closer anyway. "It'll just take a minute. I heard you've been giving out envelopes to people. That's good money, huh? Helping the poor girl and her sick mom must feel real good." Emma clutched Keanu's hand. She could sense something was wrong. Keanu kept his voice calm. I help because I want to, not because it makes me feel good. We should go, Emma. But the man didn't move. His eyes flicked to Emma's violin case. That thing worth much. Maybe you should watch your back. Movie star. Lots of people around here do desperate things for money. Keanu's jaw clenched. I'm not afraid. Leave us alone. Emma tugged his sleeve. Her eyes were wide, her grip tight on the case. The man took a step forward but stopped when another neighbor appeared on the steps, glaring at him. The man spat on the ground, muttered something under his breath, and slunk back into the alley. Keanu walked Emma quickly inside the building. They climbed the stairs in silence. Mrs. Flores was waiting at the door, concern all over her tired face when she saw their shaken expressions. After Emma was inside, Keanu pulled Mrs. Flores aside. I think someone's watching. People see the money, the help, that makes them angry or greedy. Do you know anyone who would do this, Mrs. Flores shook her head weakly. I don't know, but when you shine a light in the dark doesn't like it. Keanu knew she was right. Hope was like a candle, beautiful, but easy to blow out if you were careless. That night, he did not sleep well. He called a friend, a security expert he trusted, and asked him to keep an eye on the building. He did not want to scare Emma or her mother, but he could not let them be targets. But the next morning, when he met Emma outside her door, she was already waiting, her little violin case hugged tight to her chest. She looked up at him, eyes steady despite her fear. I'm not scared, she said softly. If I stop playing, then they win. My music makes my mama smile. It makes you smile too. I don't want to stop. Keanu knelt down and placed his hands on her shoulders. You don't have to stop, Emma. But promise me, if you ever feel scared, if someone tries to hurt you, you tell me. You never have to be alone again. Emma nodded. Her tiny hands squeezed his. I promise. As they walked to the music school, Keanu felt the weight of the promise he carried. He had found something precious in that dark alley weeks ago. A small girl with a violin and a heart full of hope. Now he had to guard that hope, protect it like a flame in a storm. He knew the world would test them, but he also knew that the strongest songs are born when the world tries to silence them. And deep down, he felt it. The biggest test was yet to come. This was only the fifth step. It was a crisp Saturday morning when Emma stood backstage for the first time in her life. The community hall was small, but to her, it felt like a palace. Rows of folding chairs were filled with neighbors, families, and even strangers who had come to support the children's concert Lena had organized. Fairy lights twinkled along the ceiling, and the smell of fresh flowers filled the room. This was her first concert, the first time her music would reach beyond the alley. Keanu sat in the front row, his hands folded tight, eyes never leaving the small gap in the curtain where he could see Emma peeking out nervously. Beside him sat Mrs. Flores, who was much stronger now. Her cheeks had color again, her eyes proud and shining as she held a warm scarf around her shoulders. She squeezed Keanu's arm. She's going to remember this day forever, she whispered. But behind the stage, Emma's small hands shook. Her old violin looked out of place among the shiny new instruments the other kids carried. She watched them laughing and fixing each other's hair, their parents fussing over them. For a moment, a shadow of doubt crept in. Maybe she did not belong here after all. Maybe she was still just a girl on the street corner. Then she heard Lena's voice, soft but steady. Emma, you are ready. You belong here. You deserve this. Emma took a deep breath, held her violin close, and stepped onto the small stage when her name was called. The lights felt so bright, the faces in the crowd blurry. But when she found Keanu's eyes in the front row, he smiled and gave her a small nod. It was enough. She placed the violin under her chin, closed her eyes, and let her bow touch the strings. The first notes wavered, but then they grew strong, wrapping the hall in the same haunting honesty that once stopped Keanu in his tracks. On a lonely street, she played the piece Lena had chosen for her, a song about hope, stitched with sadness but ending with light. People leaned forward, eyes wide, breaths held. Her mother wiped silent tears that fell into her scarf. Keanu felt his chest ache. In that familiar way, the way only true beauty can make you hurt and heal at the same time. But just as the last note faded, a sudden noise broke the stillness. A man at the back of the hall, the same stranger who had threatened them before, stood up. His eyes were wild, his face red. He shouted, "She's just a beggar girl. You're all fools for believing this act." Gasps rippled through the room. Emma's hands froze on her violin. Fear flashed in her eyes as she looked at Keanu. The man pushed through the chairs, pointing at her tin can from the old alley, which he now held up like dirty evidence. "She's tricking you all. Look at this, $1 a song. This is what she is." Keanu stood up, his calm voice cutting through the panic. "Stop. She is not what you say. She is more than you will ever see." But the man sneered. "You think you can save her, Reeves? You think giving her money makes her worth something?" For a second, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Emma looked down at her violin. Her fingers trembled. Old fears rushed back. The fear of not being enough, of being just another forgotten child playing for scraps in the cold. Then she heard a voice, small at first, but strong. "My music is worth something," Emma said. Her voice echoed into the stunned silence. "It makes my mama smile. It makes people stop. It makes me brave. You can't take that." She lifted her chin, placed her bow back on the strings, and began to play again. This time, she did not close her eyes. She looked straight at the man who tried to shame her and let every note speak what words could. Not. The hall filled with her song, fierce, raw, defiant. People turned away from the shouting man, drawn instead to the child who stood unshaken. One by one, the crowd rose to their feet. They clapped, they cheered, they made the darkness shrink back. Even the man's anger was swallowed by the sound of a tiny violin singing a story bigger than fear. Security quietly led him away, his shouts lost under the storm of applause. Emma finished her song with a last, clear note that seemed to float above them all. She lowered her violin, her cheeks wet with tears, but this time they were not tears of sadness, they were tears of pride. She looked at Keanu, who stood with his hands over his heart, eyes shining. He did not need to say a word. She knew. After the concert, people gathered around her. They wanted to thank her for reminding them that music could heal wounds they had long ignored. Lena hugged her tight. Mrs. Flores held her daughter's face in her hands, whispering, "You did it, my brave girl." Later, outside the hall, Keanu knelt down in front of Emma. "Do you know what you did tonight?" Emma smiled, her violin hugged tight to her chest. "I didn't stop playing." Keanu nodded, a laugh and a sob caught in his throat. "No, Emma, you didn't stop, and you never will. I promise I'll be here every step of the way. Your music will always be heard. Your light will never go out." As the night wrapped around them, Emma held her violin high, a tiny beacon against the darkness. She was not the girl with the cardboard sign anymore. She was the girl who made the world stop and listen, and she would never be invisible again. This was only the beginning.